Why has it been so challenging to unite the party, Mr. President? Why has it been so challenging to unite the party? Why is the party united? Why is the party united?
50-50. Come on, man. Unite the party. 50-50. I got it.
All right, guys. So, as you can see, that is the fake president showing up to Capitol Hill in order to try to get negotiations going between the moderate Democrats and the progressive Democrats in regards to his Build Back Better economic agenda, right? His domestic socialist spending agenda hangs in the balance based off these negotiations. Now, the reason why I'm calling him the fake president is because it seems that the real president of the United States, the real person that's driving the economic and domestic agenda of this country is in fact Bernie Sanders, right? Bernard Socialist Sanders is actually the one that's driving policy, right? Because he's the one that's actually wielding his power to get his agenda pushed in Washington, unlike what Mr. Biden is doing, right? That's what's happening right now, guys. Now, before I really get into this, because Biden really deserves to be criticized for his lack of leadership on this. Now, again, I'm not mad at Biden for being weak on this. However, his weakness is essentially allowing progressives to win this battle, which means that we may end up spending $4 or $5 trillion that we don't have, okay? Because Bernie Sanders is running the show, right? As he has come out and put pressure on progressives in the House to say no, to refuse to vote for the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure package if/when Nancy Pelosi brings it to the House floor. Now, they have stuck to their guns, as Nancy Pelosi had to delay the vote on that bipartisan $1.2 trillion infrastructure package last night again, right? So she's delayed it, I believe, 2 or 3 times now, right? Because she doesn't want to bring it to the floor if they don't have the votes. So progressives led by Bernie Sanders are standing their ground. They're not going to vote for this bipartisan infrastructure package unless they get what they want, which is the $3.5 trillion plan, right? Which is why Biden showed up to Washington yesterday to try to get these negotiations going, because they're trying to get Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema on board with the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan that Biden claims he wants, right? So the question is, what is going to happen here, right? What can we expect moving forward? And I'm going to break this stuff down for you guys because I find this stuff to be very fascinating, right? What could possibly happen? Now, here's the thing. As you guys know, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have refused, right? They have refused to endorse and support this $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan that the progressives and Biden claims that they want, right? Now, they also really haven't given a number in regards to what they would agree to. But Joe Manchin recently has basically come out and given a number and said $1.5 trillion, okay? Because he's been pressed. However, guys, I don't believe that Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema want to do any reconciliation whatsoever. I don't think they want to spend anything, to be quite honest with you. I really don't believe that. I think that they want to pass this $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure package first, and then after that, tell the progressives to kick rocks, right, in regards to their $3.5 trillion reconciliation plan. That's what I think they actually want to do. Okay, I don't think they want to spend anything on reconciliation at all. But I could be wrong about that, because if they did, then there would be no point in playing such hardball with the Democrats, knowing that this debt selling thing is coming up, right? It would not be any point in doing that if you were willing to negotiate down to $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion, which is what Biden is saying that the progressives are going to need to compromise down to. Now, the issue with that is that the progressives are saying that $3.5 trillion is already a compromise for them, okay? Because essentially they wanted $10 trillion, okay? They wanted $10 trillion. Bernie presented a plan that was $6 trillion, and then they came down to $3.5 trillion. So there are progressives out there that are saying, no. We can't go lower than $3.5 trillion because we've already negotiated with y'all. That's our floor, right? So these two, at best case scenario, both sides are $2 trillion apart, right? They're $2 trillion plus apart. Best case scenario. So, in my opinion, guys, I think what has to happen here, right? If anything is going to get done whatsoever, which again, I hope that this reconciliation does not get done. And if the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure package gets sunk, hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to cry about it, right? You know what I'm saying? I ain't going to be mad about that either, which could happen. What has to be done here, guys, is that somebody's going to have to fold, right? And who's going to fold is going to depend on which side Joe Biden takes. Because up until this point, guys, Joe Biden has not shown any leadership on this. He has not taken a side on this. He is kind of trying to be in the middle, but both sides are so far apart in regards to the moderate Democrats and the progressives that you can't play the middle. And because he's tried to play the middle between the moderates and the progressives, he's allowed people like Bernie Sanders to dictate the domestic spending agenda of this country, right? Which means sending us into a lot more debt, okay? Again, what has to happen moving forward here? How is somebody going to fold? Well, first of all, like I said, Biden has to take a side, right? You're either with the moderates or you're with the progressives, okay? But however, regardless, I think that the progressives are going to have to realize that this country did not vote for what they want, right? They did not vote for them to come in and spend $5, $6, $7 trillion, right? But it seems that they don't understand that because Bernie Sanders put out a tweet that said something like, we can't let 2 senators hold up, the will of 48 senators, right? And that's like a false dichotomy, right? He's presenting a false scenario because it's not it's not 2 versus 48. It's actually 48 versus 52, right? That's how our government actually functions. Our government is supposed to function this way. But again, Bernie Sanders and his tweet of him thinking that it's 48 versus 2 kind of tells you how progressives think about what they believe this country wants, and what they believe is just not true. The American people do not sign up for their social spending agenda. What they signed up for is a moderate agenda, right? They signed up essentially for what Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, and the other Republicans got on board with. Regardless of what both extremes on both sides say, that's what the American people voted for, right? That's how our government is supposed to work. That's how the founders designed it to work, okay? People can get mad about it, but that's how it's supposed to work. So they're going to have to compromise down, right? They're going to have to compromise down to, at least what Joe Manchin's number that he put out there was, which is 1.5 trillion, right? Which I know some of you guys are like, wow, that's still bad, right? We're throwing around trillions of dollars, which again, I agree with you. We're throwing around trillions of dollars because, you had a 1.2 trillion, and even they negotiate the Build Back Better plan down to 1.5 trillion. We're still looking at spending $3 trillion, right? Which is unheard of, again, except until this pandemic, right? But if the progressives were to do that, they choose what do you actually really want, right? Do you want the expanded tax credit? Do you want universal pre-K? What out of all the agenda that you want, you're not going to be able to get all of it. If they figure out what they want and they can get it down to 1.5 trillion, and if Biden comes out and says, okay, progressives have come down to 1.5 trillion, they've come down to your number, Joe Manchin, what are you going to do? At that point, it now puts the ball in the court of Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. Now all the pressure is on them to not only agree with the progressives on their compromise, but to also get on board with it because they need to use reconciliation to increase the debt limit, right? They need to do that. Okay? That's what they need to do. So essentially what has to happen here is that Biden has to pick a side. And if the progressives are actually willing to compromise down to 1.5 to 2 trillion, then I think that Biden's going to side with them. That's what I think is going to happen if they're willing to come down to the range of that number that Joe Manchin was talking about. Because then at that point, everything kind of falls on Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. Now, there's a chance that progressives may not do that, right? Because progressives have shown, or at least they're saying that, hey, you know what? We don't really care about the debt limit, right? They adhere to modern monetary theory, right? They don't believe that, the federal government has a limited amount of money that we should be printing, right? They believe that we can just afford anything and everything, okay? And essentially, they've said that, we're willing to not raise the debt limit because we can just do this accounting trick, right, that's allowed by the feds, in which we print or mint this $1 trillion platinum coin, right? And essentially, we swap it out for our debt, right? And that allows our government to keep running. Now, y'all can look that up to get more details on it. I don't have time to go into how it actually works, but it's essentially a accounting trick that the government can do to get around the whole debt limit thing, right? And, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, has essentially said that's not an option right now, that they're not going to do that. However, I mean, we've never been presented with this situation before because the debt limit has always been increased, okay? However, if progressives stick to their guns, right, and say that, we're not going to raise the debt limit, and we don't care, we want the 3.5 trillion, which I don't think Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema will ever get on board with, we could be faced with a scenario in which we may have to do that. And then that scenario, we may not get nothing, right? And then we may have this new precedent set where we're now printing out $1 trillion coins that, again, are arbitrarily worth that much because we say it's worth that much, essentially probably breaking our monetary system, right? People no longer understand what the actual value of money is. And if that happens, I'm probably going to take all my money and just put it into crypto, right? That's probably what I'm going to do if it actually gets to that point, because it just shows that money means nothing, right? It means whatever we say it means, which, again, kind of, goes along with the whole concept of crypto, right? There's no way if they print this $1 trillion platinum coin, you can't tell me that crypto and Bitcoin is not legit, right? Whatever's legit is what we want to make legit at this point, right? Because obviously nothing really needs any real backing anymore, right? That's kind of what that would prove, right? So, ultimately, guys, I really don't know what's going to happen, right? I really don't. There's so many different scenarios here. I think the most likely thing is that progressives will probably come back down to 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion, and then we will see what Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema end up doing, right? However, I mean, again, there's a possibility that nothing gets done and that the Democrats are just forced to use reconciliation on the debt limit, just that, right? And just go from there, which, again, Democrats have said that that's a non-starter. They're not just going to waste a reconciliation on just the debt limit. So there's a lot more to go here. However, time is ticking. They got until probably, I think, around October 18th, maybe a little bit longer to actually get something done before this debt limit thing actually, starts to really take effect. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.